We, the Bangla people, welcome you to our country. We are the lawful inhabitants of this peninsula for thousands of generations. We are part of this land on which we stand, part of the waters that flow in and around. We are part of the dreaming stories that are connected. The full awareness of oneness with the land and waters will ensure a future for the children of tomorrow. Ngaya Punaguru Bangala Mirinya, Yura Tamilbu. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to our meeting, the 20th of May. In delivering the oath to Whyalla, we, the Whyalla Council members, commit to serving the community of which we are a part and will work together diligently and collaboratively to create a prosperous future in which we all can share. Item 3, our obituary notices. I invite people that are able to or wish to stand. Our respect goes to Johnny Harris, Alan Brett, Betty Boundy, Vicky Masters, Alan Brown, Niven Boyd Sr., Bridget Pope, Max Fisher, Roderick Wingfield, Charlie Olson, Ricky Ryan, Robin Watson, Edward Gardner, Helen Henneke, Gordon Clifton, David Dowsey, James Dowland, and Philip Gowan. I would also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge that the approaching date of May 31 is the 24th anniversary of the Whyalla Airlines crash of Flight 904 into Spencer Gulf while attempting to ditch with a loss of 8 lives. We remember, and the community remembers, those who lost their lives. Richard Deegan, Joan Gibbons, Ben Makowitz, Neil Marshall, Peter Olson, Wendy Olson, Teresa Porlick, and Chris Chupin. Just ask you to remain for a moment's silence. Thank you. Item 4, we have apologies from councillors Kobliker and Simpson. We have no leave of absence. Item 5, council member executive declarations 5.1, conflicts of interest. Does anyone have a conflict of interest? No conflict of interest. Item.
Sorry. I want to confirm that I've got a conflict of interest in relation to two. I confirm I've got a conflict of relation. I'm having great sight to me. I confirm that I've got a conflict of interest in relation to 2 items on tonight's agenda. One is in relation to the CEO vehicle replacement, item 20.1.2, and item 20.1.3, which is CEO performance panel review. I'll be leaving the meeting during the discussion of both of those items.
Thank you, CEO. Item 5.2, gifts and benefits. Does anybody have anything to declare? No, thank you. Item 6, minutes of the previous meeting. 6.1, confirmation of the minutes of the previous ordinary council meeting held on Monday, 15th of April. Move councillor Knox. Do I have a seconder, please? Sorry?
And that's the right one. That's the right one. Sorry about
Oh,
that.
now I see your name. Right, seconded councillor Border. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Now, at this juncture, we have quite a heavy agenda, and by necessity, we're going to have to jiggle a few things around. I would seek the leave of council to bring item 10.1.1 forward right now, which is the addressing of our annual business plan. I also seek leave of the meeting that after the conclusion of that, before we continue, we will have to break into confidence for a briefing from Liberty GFG and also from Mark Booth regarding the land transaction that's a bit later in the meeting. And we will also, I seek leave from you to bring forward item 20.1.2, which is in confidential, to be part of the corporate services ordinary reports, which will commence after 14.2.11. The reason for the change, initially it was put into confidence as a matter of commerce in confidence with the suppliers and the quotes for the vehicle. Both suppliers are now quite happy for their names and prices to be made public. So for transparency, we have decided that should now come into open council. So could I have somebody move and second, please, that I seek leave of council to bring forward item 10.1.1. Move councillor Border, seconded councillor Todd. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. As you're aware, 10.1, those on, is the opportunity for residents and ratepayers to present a submission relating to our 23-24 draft. 24-25 annual business plan and budget. Do we have any members of the public that wish to give a submission? Well, in that case, we will keep moving on.
Breaking with other
Right.
and then leave Tony to maybe
Okay.
post distance.
Yeah. In that case, moving back to item 7, matters adjourned on the table nil. Item 8, deputations nil. Item 9, petitions nil. Item 10, public question time. We do have questions. The question, or 3 questions from Mr. Nick Antonio. Question 1, what is the total expenditure to date in relation to the corporation of the city of Whyalla and Bourne Samuel? This is in relation to a determination which was supplied. The answer is council's expenditure to date on the Sanborn matter is $138,644. Question 2, has the council made the payments owing to Samuel as per the findings? The answer, council is yet to progress any payments as formal orders are yet to be provided council. By way of further explanation, any payments are subject to formal orders being issued by SAIT, regardless of para 189 of the findings. Orders set out the terms and conditions of settlement, including appeal provisions. Question 3, has the council now acknowledged Samuel Bourne's contribution to the Whyalla Council and acknowledged level 7? The answer, as with the previous question, council is awaiting orders from SAIT and no action will be taken until the orders are issued. That's the questions and answers from Mr. Antonio. Moving on to item 11, council member activities. You have them there gradually being scrolled through, quite a list. I'll give members a brief moment if there's anything you would like to add to any of your comments, or we take them as read. Take them as read and thank everybody for their efforts since the last meeting. Item 12, presentations, there are nil. Item 13, committee reports. Corporate services, 13.1. 13.1.1, the Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes of 8th of April. You have the minutes there. I'll take them as read. Would somebody care to move the recommendation? Move Councillor Knox.
I have a question.
Sorry. Yes,
Sorry.
Councillor.
There's a reference to the Director of BDO Australia and the Senior Manager of BDO Australia attending the meeting. Who is BDO Australia?
Yes, thank you. Through the Mayor, BDO have been appointed as Council's service provider for internal audit services and service reviews.
Happy to move it.
Move Councillor Knox, seconded Councillor Westerman. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 14, reports from council officers. 14.1, Office of the Chief Executive. Ordinary reports. 14.1.1, Chief Executive Officer's Action Report, May 2024. I'll refer to the CEO. Take it as read. Any questions or anything additional?
Take questions first, but I've got one.
Yes. Any questions? Councillor Border.
The SAH2H hydrogen refueling station project. What's can you elaborate a bit more about that and what the opportunity, any opportunities that might present for the community?
Yes, thank you for the question, Councillor Border. So with the emerging opportunities for hydrogen production in region, once the hydrogen is produced, the question then becomes how could that hydrogen be transported and or used. Hydrogen in from a transportation point of view is still in the Australian context an emerging technology. So the discussion with SAH2H is around how could council play a role in terms of supporting the demonstration of the use of hydrogen in vehicles. How could the deployment of hydrogen refueling stations occur within our city or around our city to support the first mover demonstration of hydrogen vehicles. There is hydrogen vehicles currently being used within the City of Adelaide in the form of 2 buses that Trans Adelaide, that's probably not their current name, Trans Adelaide, are trialling on behalf of the state government. There's a hydrogen refueling station in Adelaide to support those buses. The question is, how do we then now start to build on that, and how might Whyalla play a role in terms of building the demonstration of hydrogen from a transport point of view?
Thank you for your question, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Pond.
Just wondering if you've got an update on Plaza Youth. Last meeting, we spoke about putting a support letter together just to advocate for funding and find out what's available. And we do have one of our youth reference meetings tomorrow. I'm just wondering if there's an update.
Might ask Gail to come forward, assuming you don't have a microphone there. Oh, there is one there. Yep, sorry if there's a mic there. Sorry, Gail. I was only bringing you forward in the context of a mic, but if you've got one there,
that's okay.
If you can just provide a response, please.
Thank you. So the action was a few extra steps in that as well, Tammy. So I have been in contact with our local member, as you know, and I've sought some extra information from Joe for the letter. We needed some clarity around the funding, so it's nearly ready to go.
Thank you.
Councillor Knox, thank you for that. Councillor Knox.
On page 28 of the report, there's a reference to the council-owned land on Ekblom Street. We actually paid, I think, $20,000 for that land at the time. It was a pretty good deal from the state government. And as I recall, we gifted a parcel of land to the Anglican Church. I'm just wondering, has anybody been in touch with the Anglican Church to see whether they might be prepared to part with the land that we gifted to them?
So I'll provide an initial response and then hand to the finance manager. Council resolved some time ago to actually purchase that land. So that land is now actually in council's ownership. So the reference to the opportunity to take that parcel of land to market is part of the resolution that council separately made in terms of looking at the former Darling Terrace civic building site, as well as that vacant land on Ekbond Street, and approaching the market to see what the development opportunities are for both of those sites. And noting that on tonight's agenda, in confidence, we've got a recommendation for council in terms of engaging suitable property development advice to support council's decision about how we approach market and look at progressing development on those two sites.
Thank you, councillor. Any further questions to the CEO? In that case, we have a recommendation. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Yes. My apologies.
I just wanted to let the questions be responded to first. I did want to provide one update for councillors, which will be picked up through further discussions. But just to advise council that last week we received advice from the federal government that our funding application to the Growing Regions Fund was unsuccessful. The feedback we got from the federal government is that the fund was heavily oversubscribed, noting that was a competitive process right across the country. And based on relativities, other projects received funding, whereas our project and many in South Australia were unsuccessful. We know how important this project is to the community, and we're obviously disappointed that we weren't successful on this occasion. However, we are now currently working on next steps in terms of engaging relevant partners and other funding streams to be able for us to progress the foreshore master plan development. And in particular, we're looking at the Australian government's regional precinct and partnership program as a potential funding stream for that purpose. So we will be advising the community and working on where to from here in terms of securing funding for that important project for our city. Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you, CEO. There are no further questions. We have a report with a recommendation. Could I call for a mover, please? Moved Deputy Mayor Pond, seconded Councillor Westerman. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. 14.1.2, seeking anyone who may wish to nominate for the Stormwater Management Authority. We have a two-part recommendation there that we note the report under reference, or if somebody wishes to nominate for the position or a position, quite welcome to. Would somebody care to give me some guidance on which motion? Councillor.
I'm happy to move that we note the report under reference.
Thank you, Councillor Knox. Would somebody care to second Councillor Knox's motion? Thank you, Councillor Border. I'll put the motion then. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 14.1.3, seeking a nomination, if interested, for the Upper Eyre Peninsula Bushfire Management Committee. And we do have a recommendation there from administration nominating Irene Adair as a member and Colin Sharp as a deputy member on the Upper Eyre Peninsula Bushfire Management Committee. Do I have a motion, a mover in Councillor Border? Yes. Seconded Councillor Inglis. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. I should have left the glasses on.
No, you didn't. Sorry, you didn't. My apologies.
No.
Keep going. Last one.
See how confident I am.
Yeah.
You rattle me.
And once
All
we
right.
once
Yes,
we've done
we'll
the
move.
through, then
Yeah.
we'll going.
Yep. That's why I crossed it out. Item 14.1.4. Another procedural matter seeking anybody interested in nominating for the Adelaide Cemeteries Authority Board. We have two potential recommendations there. Somebody care to give me some guidance? Councillor Border.
Yep, I'll note the report and make no nomination to the Adelaide Cemeteries.
Thank you, Councillor Border. Seconded, Councillor
Yes.
Knox. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. As it's now fast approaching 6 o'clock, a designated time for us to move into confidential, because we do have Liberty GFG, Tony, just waiting in our lobby for our confidential briefing. Unfortunately, I do need to ask everyone to leave, but would somebody care to move that we go into confidence, please? Move Councillor Inglis, seconded Deputy Mayor Pond. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 14.2, Corporate Services Ordinary Reports. 14.2.1, the Quarterly Report, Procurement, 1st of January to 31st of March. You have a report with recommendations. I'll take it as read. If anybody has any questions, I'll refer to the CEO, who can probably refer. There are no. Councillor Knox?
I'm moving it.
You're moving. Move Councillor Knox.
Sorry, I missed that first bit. Sorry, just coming back in. What was the item number that we were up to?
14.2.1, the Quarterly Report, Procurement, 1st of January to 31st of March.
Yeah.
Yeah, page 50.
I do have a question on that one.
Yep.
I'm trying to find my bearings again. I've just been logged out. Okay, I think it's answered in the questions, but there's an amount of 58 grand. Is that the one we're on? Yep. So acknowledging it's well under budget, but given there is no competing quote, how do we know we are getting value for money?
Always an interesting one when there is no. We've had a few of these lately. Like we've had a similar one you'll see in this report. I think it was this time. Yeah, so similar stuff at the cemetery and crematorium. Like some niche markets, you struggle to get competing quotes, and so I guess some of the time we often will go to suppliers that have done work for us before, and they've shown that they can do good work. And don't seem to be unreasonable with their pricing, but that is when you can't get more than one quote, it is really hard to show public value. But at the same time, we haven't avoided going to the market. It's just that there is no real market, which is always a challenge. For regional councils with certain works that you undertake. So people will go and look for other suppliers, but getting interest in certain works. Obviously, when they're higher value and stuff, you can normally get more interest from the wider market. But sometimes at this value, it's hard to get local suppliers to quote in niche areas.
I thought that might be something like that. Thank you.
Right, we have a move, Councillor Knox. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Border. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 14.2.2, the monthly budget report. I'll refer to the CEO if anybody has any questions. Councillor Knox.
I have a question. It relates to the childcare centre. In the comment, it talks about latent conditions encountered on site have impacted progress of work, etc., and coordination of follow-on trades. What are the latent conditions?
I can field that question. Late conditions discovered were existing services on site that weren't known. They had to be rediverted, in particular gas services.
Councillor. Any other questions? Yes, councillor Border.
Yes, thank you. Just on the rec centre, so budget 1.986 million, total committed 1.98, but there's a red dot next to the budget. Wouldn't it be green?
Yeah, so I've updated the budgets for in line with the budget review, which is also on this agenda, so that everything's consistent. So often where the budget has been adjusted during the year, that's what the comments will often so towards the end, it sort of there was a small amount of budget overrun. So as we worked through, there were two items. So there was works on site that were that Justin approved to happen that were budgeted next year, so that we didn't have to have two closures. So I think we've already discussed that with council. But as we've got to the end of the project, there was about 50,000 extra that we had to put in. So it was about 2% variance on the overall project as we've worked through minor things that come up on site that add up over time. So the 280 we didn't count as a budget overrun as such. It was a retiming, and we already discussed that with council. There was about 50,000 that's outlined in the budget review. So yeah, I often do that budget as whether the original budget. So you might look in here that it's coming on the adjusted budget, but the light is, the red light is saying we did overrun the original budget. Yeah, less than 2%.
Deputy Mayor Pond.
My question is about the crematorium replacement. Are the works that needing to be done, is that any connection to the reports that we've had of it's cheaper to be cremated in Whyalla, and we've actually had to send some of our residents down there to be cremated? Is it because we haven't got sufficient facilities available now? And is it going to affect the price even more?
Yes, I'll give an initial answer that hopefully wraps up some of that, and then Colin might have some stuff to add. So first we had budgeted to do a full replacement of the crematorium. An assessment is showing that can be delayed if we do basically some minor renewal works that have to happen. So that's, as per the procurement report, they've been procured for about 100,000 instead of the 600,000 for the full replacement. The other 500,000 we've pushed out later in the plan to see where the crematorium sits sort of in 5 years from now. Yes, we've seen a drop in cremations because of the change in ownership of the local funeral home, Port Augusta, and now they've made comparisons and can direct to Whyalla apparently cheaper. So you'll see in the fees and charges report further down that we're suggesting that for the next year we adjust the fee and see what happens with the use of the crematorium. And I guess then we can come back in a year's time and look at what does the future of that service look like. So yeah, there's a few different connecting bits there.
And that was the reason why. So there was a risk of us spending all that money now and them going to Whyalla, because they'd already been going there. So when we got those reports to say that, for the next 5 years, we could keep going by spending 100 grand versus 600 grand, it was a smart operational decision to save that money with the risk of them turning it on and off whenever they feel like it, because we have no control over their business.
Councillor Inglis.
I've got a comment. We should spend as much money as possible because we're all going to have a trip through it one day. We're going to get sport. We may as well get done in style.
Thank you for your incisive comment there, Councillor. Councillor Knox.
Just wondering, do we know how much Whyalla charges currently, and how much do we currently charge?
So it's very hard to find those prices. They don't advertise them. But our cemetery coordinator has looked into and so the price that we've suggested in the fees and charges document around that $700 per cremation we think that will be competitive enough based on the fact that it is a longer distance travel to Whyalla as well. So I guess we're testing that price. We can always come back to council in partway through the year if we find that it still isn't having any impact and have a further discussion, but that was the price point that we think will hopefully see higher usage of the facility.
Thank you, Councillor. Final questions? Otherwise, we have a recommendation there, 14.2.2.
Sorry. I did another question. This is on 15.2.1. and sorry, Mayor, it was great to see the rec centre solar. The ROI was said 4 years at the budget session, but the agenda says 6. That was the return on investment of the investment into the solar system. And I was just a bit confused as to whether it was 4 or 6 year payback period.
I think that was the, which page are you looking at? Sorry,
Unless I've jumped ahead.
what page are you on?
Under 15.2.1.
We're on 14 points.
Sorry, I've massively jumped ahead. My apology. No, ignore me for the moment. Sorry, everybody.
All right, we're on 14.2.2. We have a recommendation. Right. Moved Councillor Border, seconded Councillor Westerman. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 14.2.3, Council's listening post outcomes. And before I ask for comments, I would just like to thank administration for the amount of time they put in to following up. It is very easy for us to say, yep, we'll go and have a chat with residents, make a few notes and pass it back on, which we did very well. Administration's had the difficult job with some of them finalising it. So I acknowledge their efforts and what they've done. Now over to members that may have any questions or comments.
Just a comment, and you took the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say, absolutely brilliant effort by the mayor and the deputy mayor and council staff to put that all together and to make that so easily digestible. I think that's a really fantastic message that we have sent now to the community about listening and acting. So thank you and well done.
Yeah, thanks, councillor. No further comments. We have a recommendation. Would somebody care to move that recommendation? Move Councillor Border, seconded Councillor Todd. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. 14.2.4, budget review. We have 2 recommendations there. Does anybody have any questions, which I will refer to the CEO initially? Councillor Todd? Right, thank you. If there are no questions.
One question, sorry, Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Border.
Page 95. What's the industrial issue that cost 100 grand? Oh, is that the?
Yeah, so
Take that in confidence.
it's already public by virtue of the question. So that's in relation to the South Australian Employment Tribunal.
So what was answered with the questions? Okay, same issue.
Same issue.
Okay.
Any further questions? Councillor Knox?
Just a comment, the airport, what are we going to do there? I think we need to give it a lot of thought.
Yeah, I'm happy. I mean, in the first instance, we did have a discussion early in the budget process about whether we needed to significantly change our assumptions around airport passenger numbers and start to really play around with the passenger levy potentially. I think the response that we got from the early in our budget process was, let's hold a little bit longer with some of the stuff that's about to happen. But I agree. I think, we can't hold that long. It's because of, as we've spoken about a lot during our budget process, the 2 options are we need more passengers or we need to up the income somehow, which is only basically in the short term passenger levy. Longer term, some of those commercialisation options are where you're going to gather income. So it's going to take it.
Sorry, if I can, through the mayor, it's easy to say, let's just get rid of it. We've got to have someone to take it on, but that wasn't the point I was going to raise. What I was going to mention is that as early as tomorrow, we've got the first meeting, which is effectively with the state government, albeit through a third party that they've commissioned to do some work around what is the people movement piece associated with the hydrogen jobs plan. when you're talking about the number of people needed during the construction period of the hydrogen jobs plan, they're either going to come in and out of our city on a plane or in a car or a bus. So the logistical piece associated with people movement, for all intents and purposes, starts tomorrow. And that will bring the airport very much into frame in terms of the step change that we're expecting in terms of the number of people coming in and out of the airport and how they might come in and out of the airport.
And on that note, Justin, is that to say that the more people that are coming in and out for the hydrogen jobs plan, that is going to boost revenue? Is that the basic assumption there?
Yeah.
So help is on the way potentially to balance it out a bit better.
I wouldn't use the word help in the context of what I just said.
Yep.
My context is that we are expecting a step change in the volume of people that will be using our airport, how they use it, and how we charge them for the use of the airport is something that we need to work through. But for the first time, we've actually got an acknowledgement at the state government level that a step change is imminent.
Yep.
And we'll now work through that, noting that we believe that part of the solution in terms of increasing the revenue could be in the form of funding support from either the federal government or the state government. We've discussed previously that the federal government funding opportunity is probably going to take more time and be subject to a much broader piece of work with the white paper review that's currently underway. At the state government level, there's been no indications that the state government will do, but the key point is that more people are going to be using our airport in the very foreseeable future. That has to have some implications in terms of our opportunity in terms of revenue streams.
Yeah. Thank you. I should have used the word opportunity instead of help.
Thank you, CEO.
Don't use the word help.
Any further comments? In that case, we have a recommendation. Would somebody care to move that recommendation? Move Councillor Border. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Todd. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 14.2.5, fees and charges register for 2024-25. We have a recommendation there. Anybody has any questions? In that case, can I call on somebody to move the recommendation? Councillor Knox. Seconded, Councillor Border. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 14.2.6, the strategic management plans adoption. We have a recommendation there with A, B, and C. Do I have any questions of the CEO? In that case, would somebody care to move that recommendation? Move Councillor Westerman. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Border. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you.
Yes, that you asked. Here to make a presentation regarding the annual budget. So that opportunity.
Mr. Antonio, are you here to make a submission for the annual business plan? You're not? No, that's fine. Thank you. Item 14.2.7, WTF, what's the future outcomes and next steps? We have a recommendation there, three-part recommendation. Does anybody have any questions or comments? In that case, would somebody care to move the recommendation? Councillor Border, do I have a seconder? Councillor Todd? No further questions or comments. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 14.2.8, the rescheduling of the October 2024 Audit and Risk Committee meeting. two-part recommendation there. Does anybody have any questions of councillor Knox?
Moving the
Moving it.
recommendation.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Campbell. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 14.2.9, the Treasury Management Policy. Does anybody have any questions of that report? In that case, do I have a mover of the recommendation, please? Somebody to move the recommendation? Moved Councillor Border, seconded Councillor Campbell. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. 14.2.1010, procurement policy. Again, does anybody have any questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll take it as read. And will somebody care to move the recommendation? Moved Councillor Border, seconded Councillor Inglis. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 14.2.11, the Standing Committee inquiry into the local government submission. There is a recommendation. Does anybody have any questions or comments for the CEO? In that case, we'll take the report as read. Councillor Knox moving?
Yes.
Do I have a Councillor Border seconded? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Yeah. As previously mentioned, I will seek leave of the meeting to bring forward item 20.1.2. Will somebody care to move that we bring forward that item, seeking leave of council? Move Councillor Todd. Do I have a seconded Councillor Westerman? I will put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. And the CEO will leave the meeting. As previously mentioned, we are pulling this out of confidential because initially it was a matter of confidential commerce. In the quotes from the two suppliers, both have since advised council they are happy for it to become a public document. Therefore, we're now bringing it into the open council. We have some recommendations there. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Which I guess I will refer to Kathy. Oh, of course, Grant. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Councillor Knox.
There's a significant cost to council in this vehicle going backwards and forwards to Adelaide. I think it's something that needs to be mentioned. It also needs to be mentioned that the agreement with the CEO requires that he resides in Whyalla. I'm not sure what we do about those things, but I think they need to be mentioned.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Border.
My question is just more in regards to the durability of the vehicle. And when I first read it, I just thought 2 years and 8 months, 150,000 Ks, Toyota's a good brand. And I just wonder how how can it be undiagnosed? I'm not a mechanic, but I just think that it just seems very early, considering then the next part of it is that we're going to put a 6-year term on the future process.
I mean, when you look at our fleet as a whole, we don't have a lot of mechanical issues. So I don't know if it's just a gremlin for that model. Been told that maybe that model has a few gremlins in it. But yeah, as our fleet as a whole doesn't necessarily have a lot of mechanical issues. You're going to get some from time to time. So the thinking is as well that this will be the exact same wording that we would use on any of our fleet. You know, 6 years is about what we expect now to replace fleet at, where they don't do, you know, a lot of Ks. And as outlined in the report, that's, you know, back in the day, you would probably trade your vehicles after 2 to 3 years. But with the way warranties are going with vehicles now, you know, 7 to 10 years is pretty standard across. And so that's why we've actually pushed out our replacement of our overall fleet. I guess what was missing in our, it's not policy, but in our internal process was there was no kilometre cap in our replacement schedule. It was always just the 6 year. That's what it's been updated to. So, you know, where cars are used a bit more heavily, they should probably replace a little bit earlier based on that kilometre, but also adding in that, you know, if there are serious mechanical issues, you'd want to trade it in, noting that the trade-in value is still actually pretty high. So, and one of the suppliers knows exactly what's going on with the vehicle. So they, it's obviously a bit undiagnosed, but they might be able to deal with it later on once it becomes their issue. But yeah, I think as a fleet, we don't have overall huge issues with mechanical. We did have, you know, I think a few of our Nissans a couple of years ago, there was a certain type of X-Trail that had seemed to have non-stop issues. So you do get certain models that, you know, have gremlins pop up.
And I guess my question then leads into the car is going to be traded in and then on sold to somebody else. I assume it's going to be repaired in that interim. Why aren't we keeping the car and having it repaired? Has there been, I guess, have we gone down that path of saying it's going to cost X amount to trade it in, and that's better because we're not spending X on a repair that's going to inevitably have to be done if that trade is worth anything for the next person to buy it?
Yeah, good question. I mean, obviously the trade-in values is shown in the report, so we know what we're getting for the trade-in value. Look, I think it's whether we think, like, all of these things are up for discussion. It's whether we think having that 180,000 cap is reasonable. Because even if we, with this one, it's had some mechanical issues, it's about 150,000 Ks now. So that would probably be, you know, if we go through that whole process, it might be that we're trading if we think 180,000 is reasonable. And the reason we picked that is there is still, like, I think, as I said, the amount of years you keep it for is flattening out. It used to, you know, if you kept a car for more than 3 to 4 years, it would drop off quite quickly, the trade-in values. That's starting to flatten out because of the extended lives that car, you know, manufacturers are giving. Same Ks, you know, you can keep them. Back in the days, like places used to trading cars when they got to sort of 50, 60,000 Ks, they were gone because once again, it would drop off really quick. But also that's the same. So we're not seeing that huge drop off, but there is still a point where, you know, once you go past probably 200,000 Ks, that trading value starts to drop away a bit quicker. So, you know, it's about finding the sweet spot, I think. So, you know, if we trade this vehicle now, we're setting that 180,000 as the threshold anyway to deal with that issue, the mechanical issue, and then we might be trading it, you know, 6, 9 months down the track. So, I guess it's just balancing out all the factors.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Pond.
I totally agree with everything Councillor Knox said. I think elected members need to take into consideration that the wear and tear on that vehicle, a lot of it comes down to our CEO does not live in Whyalla, which was in the special conditions of the employment agreement. And I don't think our community are in a financial position where we can think about spending big amounts of money. When we have a fleet of cars, is there a possibility to relocate one of those other cars available instead of purchasing something new?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Pond. Just before I go on, and perhaps Grant can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe there is anything in the contract that says that he was going to reside, or it's written in that he will reside in Whyalla. Might have been talked about, but I don't believe it's part of the contract. Yeah.
There was a document that we were given when it was released a couple of months ago under the consideration. I think there was an amendment put in around the CEO remuneration. There was actually something in there a couple of months ago, and I've only just recently read it. I can actually get that page number for you and quote that number, and I can do that on notice. I'll do a bit of homework. But
I think that's to do with the future that is being currently looked at, and not our contract, if I'm correct. That is what, I've lost,
I think.
I've
I
lost
mean,
track of the name of the
yeah,
group that's doing, to do
Yeah.
with the sustainability
the remuneration tribunal.
remuneration. That is a
Yeah,
separate
the
issue,
remuneration
which
tribunal.
will, if it ever comes into force, which we will then be looking at, but it's not part of the current procedure, current packaging.
Okay, my understanding was, and I could be wrong, my understanding was that it was the criteria that we put forward when we were employing a CEO in the previous council.
And
But I will relook and
Yep.
get that information.
yeah, and if that was criteria that was put forward when you were recruiting for the chief executive officer, that actually hasn't been translated into a provision within his employment agreement. And so, given if it's not in as a provision within his employment agreement, then it's not a contractual binding obligation in the context of your employment relationship with the chief executive officer. But we can certainly take that on notice and confirm, 100% in terms of those provisions. But it is not part of his actual employment agreement. But we can take that one on notice certainly, and have a look at those provisions.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Inglis.
And my question is, why don't we look at leasing these vehicles? In our business, we lease through SG Fleet, State Government Fleet, and that covers registration, insurance, travelling, repairs, tyres, everything. It's the best option out there, and we change our cars out 3 years, 150, 180,000 k. But you know, you lease it for 4 years. When the lease is up, you hand it back to the lease company, give you something else. So I've leased a car similar to what the CEO's been driving. It's cost me $1,320 a month, and all I did was put fuel in it. I've just sold or handed it back, but it covers everything, and you don't have to worry about resale values or holding on to them. And and to Councillor Border's point, who cares? Once you're trading in, it's nothing to do with us, and you don't want to hang on to them because they depreciate so quickly. And the market, the arse has fallen out of the second-hand car market now. So I don't understand why we do not lease our vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to pull some information together on what the difference in price would be. I think because of the size of our fleet and how we manage it, I don't believe it would. I can't see how it would be cheaper to lease. You're just adding a profit margin onto another company.
I would say the difference about leasing, Grant, is the fact that all your maintenance is covered, your tyres are covered, registration, insurance, everything's covered, and you have no maintenance bills. Wear and tear is not an issue. You can drive till the wheels fall off. It's not your problem. When the lease is up, you hand it back and get another one, and away you go.
I will note we do have an internal mechanic, so I think that actually we have a price.
But the problem with that also is too, and there's no disrespect to internal mechanics, it's plug and play now. Mechanics aren't fixing anything. I whack a computer, and the computer tells what it's wrong. You take it, and you're going to have to take it to vendors to get them. The days of trying to service vehicles with mechanics, all right, doing tractors and trucks and that, but these cars are so technical now, so much electronics in them. I just don't see why we would not be leasing these vehicles and take all the angst, all the grief out of it. And you can lease whatever you like. You can lease up 3 wheels if you want, or you can, my prototype I leased was a GXL. It was middle of the range. It cost me $1,320 a month for Whyalla. And all we did is put fuel in it. When it broke down, I took to SG Fleet and fixed it. When the tyres were out, put new tyres on, it was insured and registered on the 31st of August every year. And no cost to us. So and we went through state SG Fleet, which is state government fleet. So it's something worth looking at. And really, we should be looking at all our fleet vehicles through there. You can get commercials, you can get whatever you like, and you can lease whatever you like. So there's a massive range of vehicles.
Well, thank you for that, Councillor. Certainly take it on board. Councillor Campbell.
Looking at this, and I think members of the public looks at this as well, 150 kilometres over 2 years and 8 months is manifestly excessive to what they would expect to be happening on the value of the car. It's obviously had an effect on the car to be driven that hard over 2 years and 8 months. For the schedule, the policy position, I believe we need to add some extra points to that. Reasonable personal use, where it says the council will provide the chief executive officer with a fully maintained motor vehicle for full private and business use. I think it should say full private, and at some point the words reasonable personal use need to be added in, because I can't see how 150,000 kilometres has been for council use. And although we are providing this for personal use, I think in the interest of the people that are actually paying for the car, the public, we do need to take into account what we consider to be reasonable and not. Further on that, I believe that there should be another part added to the new policy that it should only be driven on main roads or graded unsealed roads. And where it says driven by immediate family members, it should be immediate family members with a full and current licence without restrictions. Because I think we're opening ourselves up to criticism by not putting those in, or at least considering putting those in, because I've had some phone calls from members of the public with concerns, and I think we need to listen to those and address them. And I think that we can't do a lot about what's happened with this vehicle, but what we can do is put things in place to prevent this happening again.
Thank you, councillor. I don't disagree with you, but I'll refer to Kathy here. I think what you're asking for there is a change in the current contract, which would have to wait until a contract is renewed.
Well, certainly a variation to the
Yes,
contract could
variation.
actually occur through negotiation with the chief executive officer, and you know, a variation to an employment agreement can happen at any time. So you know, if council is desirous of changing some of the terms and conditions around the vehicle use, it would need to happen through those contractual negotiations. I don't have the chief executive officer's employment agreement in front of me, but I would suggest it is very common practice that the provision of a motor vehicle and full personal use is actually a clause within the contract. So to change that element would require a variation to the employment agreement, but I would need to take that on notice to have a look at the actual clause within the employment agreement. I'm wondering, Mayor, I mean, some of the considerations in this particular item, currently and as outlined in the report that Grant has written, the current vehicle has not been fixed as yet. The mechanics have not been able to find the problem with the vehicle, and so it is still unexpectedly cutting out, and that they have not been able to diagnose what the issue with the vehicle is. So the vehicle really, on the basis of it continuously cutting out, you know, places the driver and, you know, the chief executive officer at risk, and, you know, that's not something that that we wish to do. So at the moment, at a reasonable value, a car is actually being provided to the chief executive officer to fulfil the contractual obligations that council has. I'm wondering whether this item needs a little bit more work, Mayor, in you know, and you know, perhaps through the chief executive officer review committee, that some different options in terms of the vehicle and the replacement vehicle can come through to you for consideration prior to it actually coming through into council. And so in that regard, you could adjourn this item, requesting further information to come back to council. We do need to be cognizant of timeframes though, because you know, the longer that we don't actually provide a vehicle to the chief executive officer through this sort of a process, whether it be by purchase or by lease or whatever, the longer it is that we're providing a different vehicle for him, that comes also at a cost to council, albeit that's a very, very, very reasonable price at the moment. For it to continue would not be something that I would be recommending to continue for any length of time. So it could be that that you adjourn this item for the gathering of additional information, and for that to be brought back in the first instance to the review committee for review and discussion to then come on into council.
Certainly take your advice, Kathy. Would somebody, I know we've still got some others waiting for comments, but in view of that, would somebody care to move that way first, or do you?
I think I'm up next, and I'll be happy to move that. But I'll also say in moving it that in page 302 of the March council meeting, the position description must have been included, because it says there's an expectation that the CEO and family will reside in the community. I'm happy to move that adjournment.
Thank you, councillor. Is that seconded by councillor Todd? Oh, right. Was, councillor, yes, councillor Inglis?
I'll second it.
We have a motion then that the matter be adjourned for additional information. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Did Councillor Todd have a comment to make on that item there before we moved it?
No.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right, moving on to 14.3, City Growth Ordinary Reports, 14.3.1, Hydrogen Jobs Plan. Referral. Wait till the CEO gets back. If you've got questions. Right, 14.3.1, Hydrogen Jobs Plan Referral. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Knox,
I'm moving it.
you're moving it. In that case, do I have a seconder? Councillor Border, you seconding it?
Yes.
In that case, we have a mover and a second. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. 14.3.2, easements required for Hydrogen Jobs Plan project. Seeking a delegation. Does anybody have any questions of the CEO or comments? If not, do I have somebody wishing to move the recommendation? Councillor Knox. Seconded, Councillor Campbell. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 14.3.3, the National Trust of South Australia MOU and nominating for Mount Laura Homestead Advisory Group. We have a recommendation there of two parts, noting the report under reference and nominating anyone who would like to be on a position on the Mount Laura Homestead Advisory Group. Anybody wish to comment to the CEO, Councillor Campbell?
Oh.
Right, anybody with questions or comments? Anybody interested in part two of the recommendation? Right, well, we've got part one. In that case, we have one recommendation there that we note the report under reference.
It's a requirement that there's a member.
Sorry?
It's a requirement that there's a member.
Member. Deputy Mayor Pond.
How often do they meet?
Yeah.
What's the amount of commitment needed?
Sorry, Councillor Pond, I'm behind you. At this stage, it's in the forming of the committee, so they will address the terms of reference as the committee goes along. And I believe that they're looking to meet once every 2 months.
Sorry, Councillor.
I'm happy to nominate for that position.
Right. In that case, we have a nomination from Councillor Todd. In that case, the recommendation will be noting the report under reference and nominating Councillor Todd for a position on the Mount Laura Homestead Advisory Group. Move Councillor Border, seconded Councillor Knox. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 14.3.4, revocation of land dedication to council Jubilee. We have a recommendation there. Does anybody have any questions of the CEO or comments? If not, I have a mover of the recommendation.
I'll move it in a second, but I just had a quick question about discussions with the groups that already use Jubilee. And just as a quick question, are those groups engaged and aware of what's happening at the moment, just to keep them up to date?
Through the CEO, but I don't think that's to do with Jubilee Park.
Yeah, it doesn't, but I'll ask Jodie Brown, our Manager of City Development, to provide a response, please.
In discussions with the Crown, so Crown, this is relating just to their dedication of council. The purpose for the use being for the workers' accommodation is consultation that OPSA, so the Office of Hydrogen Jobs Power, will be doing independently. The Crown generally seek that council, if we're revoking community land status or dedication, that we undertake some formal consultation, given that it's a state government who wants the state government to revoke the dedication to council for their purpose. They've said that they're satisfied that the OPS's communications out to the users at Jubilee Park and the community in general, that satisfies their requirement. They just seek a resolution of council to support the revocation of dedication. And I'll just highlight for members information that they actually don't need council support to revoke dedication to council, and they don't need our support to dedicate land to us. But it is a process that they take, and they like, and the minister likes to understand that council's on the same page and understands why the land wants to be revoked, and are supportive.
CEO.
And just adding to the response from Jodie, the consultation regarding the temporary accommodation commenced today. I'm just looking in the direction to get confirmation that it's gone out. So the process of informing and engaging the community about the temporary accommodation has commenced as of today. So it will be out in the public domain as we speak.
But also to add to that, the Office of Hydrogen SA has been provided with a list of all stakeholders at Jubilee for many months now.
Councillor Border?
I'll move it.
Councillor Knox seconding?
Yeah.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. 14.3.5, revocation of dedication to council of Copperhouse Court. Have a report there. Any questions or comments to the CEO? If not, I'll take the report as read. Would somebody care to move the recommendation? Councillor Border moved. Deputy Mayor Pond seconded. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 14.4, City and Infrastructure Ordinary Reports. 14.4.1, Visitor Infrastructure Works at Stony Point and refurbishment of cottages at Point Lowly. We have a recommendation noting the report. Councillor Knox.
Question. Point Lowly cottages, there's a reference to the water supply being an issue out there and a new septic tank. I'm just wondering whether we've been bold enough to put in an enviro cycle so we can reuse the water for gardens, etc.
I think it is one of the reusable type septic tanks out there now that's been installed. But I'll take it on notice and confirm the details.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that, Liz.
Sorry, Liz.
I understand that's what's been installed out there at the moment, but I'll take the question on notice and report back.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Pond.
Amazing to see that it's up and going and nearly ready to be able to be booked. Something the community's been asking for a while. But are we able to get some information on services and pricing for the general community, just for information and sharing that we can promote this service?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Sure, we'll take that on board. Councillor Inglis.
It's just a comment. I'd suggest if you haven't been done, they've done a fantastic job. It looks magnificent, and I think there's a bicycle because it is a rather large service to the side of it. But if you get a chance, go and look. They're going to be fantastic. They've done a brilliant job. I had a quick look the other day and I was out there, so You're going to have a gander. It is going to be a credit to the city.
Appreciate that, councillor. Thank you. If there are no further comments or questions, we have a recommendation. Would somebody care to move it? Councillor Border moved. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Pond. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 15, information decision reports. 15.1, council members. 15.1.1 of the mayor's list of engagements. Anybody has any questions? Quite happy to try to answer them. Or you can always chat to me about anything at any time. If there's no comments or questions, we have a recommendation. Move, councillor Border.
And a quick comment.
Yeah, yes.
And a thank you for putting in the extra detail to build a bit more story around what your engagements have been.
I'm certainly working to improve that even further. As I've said, anything that comes across my desk that I think I would like to share. I'm not saying I'm 100% on it, but I'm trying. Yes.
Thank you. And
thank you. No, councillor Border. So you're moving the report, yes. And Deputy Mayor Pond, you're seconding?
I'm seconding that. And I'd just like to make a very quick comment of the Filipino multicultural night that we went to. We saw a very interesting way of one of those random trolleys being used. We have photos for everybody.
Yes. Got to give them points for initiative. Yes, not left on the footpath. All right, yeah, we've got the motion there. Moved and seconded. I'll put the motion. Those in favour, against, carried. Thank you. 15.2 city infrastructure. 15.2.1 the monthly information report for May. Very detailed report. Anybody have any questions or comments? Councillor Border.
I've got 3 or 4 comments here. So the lease is labour intensive. The comment in the report is labour intensive, but the value of the support returns to the community is invaluable. And I just wanted to highlight that this is great to see and encourage it to continue, because I believe personally it's where the rubber hits the road for many areas of the community, and feel as though it's a bit of a link between historical issues that we've had and where we're going to the future. So I just wanted to encourage that effort to continue. Grant funding. This is the point I was making before when I got very confused. I scrolled down on my notes instead of the agenda. So the return on investment for the Rec Centre solar grant was said to be 4 years at the budget session verbally, but the agenda says 6.
Yep. So confirm, Robin. So this report's referring to we had the study done to work out what we should install. That basically says the return of investment is approximately 6 years because there's grant funding available. If we get the grant funding, the return on investment is basically half, so it'd be 3 to 4 years return on investment. So the 6 years came out of the actual the report that we got done to get the design ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. And then tree maintenance. The proposal is to remove 689 and replant 248. I'm assuming that's of the 689. It still looks like a net loss to me. Am I reading that correctly? That there will be less trees in a year? And I acknowledge that some are dangerous and need to be removed. I understand that. But wanted to also put forward that we put more trees in, and we'll see the costings to do so with the effort of making Whyalla greener and lusher in future years.
Yes, councillor. So if you have a look at it, we can't maintain the trees we've got. So we're making an operational decision there to start to sort of, balance what we're doing. I mean, some trees cost in excess of 5 to 10 grand to remove. And I just wanted to emphasise how many we removed and how much we've still got to remove across the city, and how many we've got to try to maintain with the current resources that we just, it's a balance. That makes sense, without going too deep into it.
Thank you. And then on page 279, seagrass and sand. I know the EPA have said that we can now move seagrass. Just want to confirm that that doesn't mean that we can remove it, as in take it away from the beach. That was part 1 of my question. And then can someone share a rough diagram of what is articulated in that part of the report about how the seagrass is going to stop? Is it as simple as it's just being moved up to where the boardwalk is, as it was previously in those interim measures? I didn't quite follow the wording. I'm just wondering, yeah, if it could be explained a bit more.
Yep, absolutely. It can't be removed from the beach system, but it's an incredible wave energy dissipator. So it'll be used to bolster the fore dune. So that's the very front dune, and where you've seen the erosion down by Roberts Terrace, it'll be used to really bolster that erosion 90-degree angle, and then cover the dune that's been rebuilt through the replenishment scheme. They'll try and mix it in, but also form a cover as well, because it adds that organic matter to enable the dune species to survive.
And then one final comment. That sounds like a very logical approach, that it's not removing anything from the site, that it's amalgamating the seaweed with the sand, and like you say, as a natural buffer. Am I hearing that right? Like, that's a good result for us?
There's no engineered product that matches seagrass for its wave dissipation and erosion control.
Mhm.
So to lose it from the system would be catastrophic. But absolutely, the way it's being built into the replenishment scheme and recognised in the grant agreement is really important. So absolutely. And if you actually look at photos from the 60s and 70s, there is just as much seagrass on our beach as there is now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillor. Deputy Mayor Pond.
Councillor Knox was actually first, I think.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. It's a very informative report. Thank you for everybody that put it together. And I think there's some good stories that can come out of that too in the media. But I've got one question that relates to page 258, the Alexander Motel. Are the nearby residents being asked to comment on the cabins that are going on the site? Because it does become an intensive use of the site. And I note that the driveways and things are only intended to be gravel as well.
Thank you, councillor. I'll refer to Jody.
Thank you. So it's under public notification as we speak. So all of the adjoining landowners within 60 metres get the general notification. A change under the Planning Design Code and the PDI Act is that it no longer just relates to people who are within that 60 metres. There's a QR code and a sign placed on the property, and anyone can make submission to council in relation to any development on any site. So we have had some submissions already, so that the public are having a talk. It's in its infancy, so it's just been lodged and put out for notification with the information that we required to be able to put it out to the public.
Is there any chance we could do anything about the gravel and require them to be bitumised?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you, councillor. Deputy Mayor Pond.
Loving this report. There's lots of information in it, lots of statistics. Love that we've got 472 of our customer requests that have been covered. So it just shows the efficiency and really getting out there and responding to those requests. And I'd also like to say thank you very much for the work that has been put into the Mill Street area since I brought it up last meeting. It looks like a very different section of town now, with a lot of pride put into it. Yeah, thank you very much for relocating all of your services and just, yeah, it looks beautiful, and I hope it can be sustainable. And I think we need to keep a look at that, because it makes a huge difference in the pride of the town. And if we do seem to be slipping in other areas, we really need to look at having more boots on the ground.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further questions or comments? If not, would somebody care to move the recommendations? Move councillor Knox, seconded Deputy Mayor Pond. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Notices of motion 16.1 from councillor Westerman. 16.1.1. We have a notice of motion. Do you wish to speak to that, councillor? Let it speak for itself. We have a motion. Does anybody else have any comment or question? Councillor Knox?
Just want to second it.
We have it moved by Councillor Westerman, seconded Councillor Knox. I'll put the motion then. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 17, questions on notice 17.1 from Councillor Knox, 17.1.1. Questions with answers covering a range of subjects. Are you happy with the way it's presented, Councillor Knox? Any further comments or questions?
I had a question. In the answer to question 6, can Whyalla, previously Hope Collective, be included if they aren't already? That's in regards to Councillor Knox's question number 6. What are the outcomes of the services meeting that are being held, and can minutes of those meetings be shared with council? And the answer refers to a few services, but I couldn't see Hope Whyalla in there. I just wonder if they are on that list or if they can be on that list.
We'll take the question on notice. My initial response is the nature of the services group delves into some very sensitive and complex matters that require cross-government agency response. And my initial reaction is that having Hope Collective involved with those conversations will probably not be an appropriate forum for those things, but I'll take the question on notice and we'll explore that further.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Right, moving on then. Thank you, Councillor. Item 18, questions without notice. Do we have any questions without notice? Councillor Knox?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but is the EPLGA conference coming up very shortly in this month? And if that is the case, and that's at Cowell, why hasn't the opportunity been provided for council members to have the opportunity to attend? Several people did attend the last one in Port Lincoln and may be interested enough to attend the Cowell one.
I have already discussed this with the CEO and he is putting information out to elected members tomorrow.
Bit late.
Any further questions without notice? Okay, so moving on, item 19, motions without notice. Councillor Border.
I have a motion that council prepare a report on the financial, including potential grant funding, environmental and social benefits of installing a bike/scooter path network that builds on the existing network with the intention of, do I just read it out first and then? Yep. Okay. With the intention of encouraging and enabling tourists and locals to access and explore the city by bike, e-bike and e-scooter. So to start at the top, that council prepare a report, and I'm happy to be guided about how this looks. That council prepare a report on the financial, including potential grant funding, environmental and social benefits. So prepare a report on the financial, environmental and social benefits, environmental and social benefits. Of installing a bike and scooter path. A path network that builds on the existing network. With the intention of encouraging and enabling tourists. Encouraging and enabling tourists and locals to access and explore the city by e-bike and e-scooter. And bike, sorry, so by bike, e-bike and e-scooter.
But before I seek a seconder, CEO.
Yeah, through the mayor, a substantive motion of this nature, particularly when it comes to resource and budget implications, should be on notice. And being on notice, the administration would then be in a position to provide some preliminary comments to inform the council's decision as to the resource implications associated with doing what is being requested. I say that not in terms of speaking against what's being moved, but it is quite a substantive piece of work that you're asking for, and I think it would be more appropriate that council considers this matter on notice, where the administration can provide some of that preliminary feedback.
I'm happy for that, and I've actually got a corresponding one which is actually more urgent, which I probably should have said first. This one kind of flows from the one that I'd like to share next. So
Right.
I'm happy for that one to be on notice.
So suggest that this one be withdrawn. So ask the member to withdraw this item.
Would you be prepared to withdraw this one at this stage to have it treated separately?
Just to save Michelle retyping it again. Yeah, yes, I am.
Right.
Second one.
Right, the second one?
My apologies, I should have said this one first. So my motion is that council provide a report on possible solutions to the immediate danger caused by the absence of adequate street lighting, safe footpath and pedestrian/driver signage by the Whyalla Caravan and Tourist Park on Malaquina Road and Horseshoe Road. So that's my motion. Got a report on possible solutions to the immediate danger caused by the absence of adequate street lighting, safe footpath, and pedestrian/driver signage by the Whyalla Caravan and Tourist Park. On Malaquina Road and Horseshoe Road. And I'd like to speak to that motion as well.
But we have the motion. Would somebody care to second that to enable Councillor Border to speak to it? Deputy Mayor Pond?
Absolutely. Words out of my mouth. I've had the same conversation with the owners of the facility.
Yep. Thank you.
Councillor Border.
So the owner of the Whyalla Caravan and Tourist Park, Steve, has sent an email to us, and Deputy Mayor Pond and coincidentally and myself have spoken with the owner, and it's pitch black at night, and there's cars. It's an 80k zone, but as we can all imagine, when there's no street lights and you're on that side of town, 80k's is just a guide, and there is not a safe or any kind of sealed section between the forgive me if I've got this wrong, but between the highway and Malaquina Road, which is Horseshoe Road. And he says that a lot of his customers are feeling very unsafe. They have put in an enormous amount of energy, effort, and money to invest in their caravan park. So they're attracting more clientele. Their clientele are exploring the town by e-bike specifically, he said. They may be pushing a pram, hopefully not a shopping trolley, or bikes or e-bikes. And I think it's absolutely necessary, which again feeds into my other motion. But for this one here, I think there's an immediate need to do something, and I'm open to what that would be. And Steve is open to what that would be, whether it doesn't need to be a sealed footpath, but a compacted footpath that you can roll the wheel on, some signage letting motorists know that there is a density of people that will be in that area on the side of the road, and just to take precautions. And I'm open to what form that takes, and so is the proprietor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We have the recommendation and motion there. Would CEO?
I think the wording needs to be changed. The first one is that council provides a report. I think you mean the administration.
Yes, I do. The administration provide a report.
Can I suggest that the words perceived danger? Because to date, there hasn't been a risk assessment done to determine the danger that exists and the consequences of that risk. So I don't want to have it perceived in advance that it's been assessed and that there is an agreed concern regarding danger, because I think that is very black and white, and given risk implications and insurance implications, I'd like just to put a couple of extra words in.
I'm happy for that, as long as it doesn't lose the urgency. So the reason I say immediate danger is to instill the urgency about any kind of interim measure being there, but I'm happy with perceived.
Thank you, councillor. On that note then, we have a motion. Been moved and seconded. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 20, we now move on to consideration of confidential items. I will now need to ask the gallery regrettably to vacate the chamber and also call on somebody to move that we go into confidence. Do I have a mover, Deputy Mayor Pond, seconded Councillor Inglis? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried.
Mayor, I'm just going to ask for a moment.
Yes,
Down the
so I
hall.
was just waiting for the gallery to leave.
Oh, okay.
We take a 15-minute break?
It would be appropriate to adjourn the meeting.
Yes, we adjourn the meeting until 8 p.m. That's just under 15 minutes.
I'll move the adjournment.
Thank you. Not me to move it. Moved, Councillor Knox, seconded, Councillor Campbell, sorry, Deputy Mayor.